talking about indigenous women and economy in Argentina with Silvia Hirsch from Universidad Nacional de San Martín, who studied at the University of California in Los Angeles. Hello.
Hello, good morning. Thank you. Thanks. I'm very glad of being here. And I would like to talk to you about my research that's already 40 years long that I've been carrying out research among indigenous peoples in Argentina, in the northern part of the country. But I can generalize because it's similar to other parts of the country. Argentina is known as a European country, you could say, because of large European immigration that is present in our country, but there are more than 20 different indigenous groups. Many of these indigenous groups, Indians, native people to the country, speak their own languages, not all of them, but many do, and many of them live in rural areas of the country. And what I wanted to comment about is what is the role of women, indigenous, native women in the economy, in their economy of their own communities. So many of these indigenous peoples live in urban contexts. They could be in usually poor neighborhoods in cities or near cities, or in villages, rural villages, or also called communities. And so in these contexts, the economy is very, very difficult. In some cases where I work, some of the communities have their own lands and have access to land, and there they can cultivate corn and manioc and squash, beans, and other products. And for many years, the men did the agricultural work and the women did the harvesting, and then the woman would take the harvest and sell it, these huge bags which weigh like 20 kilos or 30 kilos, and take it to nearby towns outside of their villages where they would sell these products. Just sit down on a sidewalk, like 10 women could be sitting on a sidewalk and selling to the people from that town their produce. And then with the money they get, everything is of course in cash, they would get the money, buy meat or oil or whatever they need for their everyday lives, and take back and use that money. Many of these women traditionally, let's say when this started more than 50 or 60 years ago, didn't speak Spanish well. Spanish is the national language of Argentina. Didn't speak Spanish well. Some went to school, many hadn't gone to school, but they were very skilled at going to town, selling, knowing the price of things, knowing how much you need to sell a kilo of corn or a kilo of any other, or sweet potatoes, which they also cultivate. So they had this knowledge that they acquired through practice. Some of these women also would go to the border, because this is about 50 or 60 kilometers from the border with Bolivia. So they would cross the border to Bolivia, and there they would buy other things, cigarettes, candy, whatever they needed, because the price of these products was less expensive in Bolivia. So here we have something very interesting about the knowledge women have of a local economy. How women know that the currency of the Argentine peso and the Bolivian peso is different, how much it means to buy something in Bolivia when it's less expensive. Both Argentina and Bolivia are countries with high inflation, which you don't have as much in Europe or the United States. We have a lot of inflation. A lot is a lot, up to 150% a year of inflation. So in our worst years. So that means that women need to understand that. And these are women who maybe have elementary school, and that's all, primary school education. But they knew that the price of an item is less in either side of the border. And then they would cross these with bags, just carry the products and then resell them in their own communities or in the nearby towns. So that has been something part of the economy. There are other women in other villages who work producing crafts. It could be pottery, or it could be weavings that they make. And the materials they get from their own communities, especially with the weaving. The weaving is made from fibers of plants, and they weave and they sell that locally, or they go into town and sell it. And the problem there with pottery, with crafts, is that they always get a very low price. So crafts demand a lot of time to make, a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work to make anything, either pottery or weaving, and then they sell it for a very, very low price. In spite of that, it is something that they need because it's a cash economy. Everything is on a daily basis of having that income. What has happened in the last 10 years or 15 years is that women now are entering high school education, secondary education, and many of them are starting to become school teachers, nurses, or health workers, and this has allowed them to have access to a much better salary because they have become qualified. This has been done with a lot of effort, a huge effort, because these women have children when they're very young, when they're teenagers, many of them. They're mothers when they're 16, 17, 18 years old. They have 4, 5, or 6 children, and they start studying as adults. So they go to secondary school when they're in their late 20s or 30s, and then they continue studying. So everything's done with a lot of effort. But they can do this because they have an extended family that helps. So women are able to work outside the house and study outside the house because the mothers and grandmothers take care of their children. Otherwise, it's impossible. There's no daycare system or paid system or free system to leave the children. It's this big network of sisters-in-law, aunts, cousins who take care of the children, who do the washing of the clothes, who will cook, so these women can go out. So many mothers and grandmothers says, I will take care of your children and do the cooking. I want you to study because I was not able to study. If you study, you will be able to get a better job. And so this has changed the local economy substantially because many times women who are more qualified than men because they're teachers or nurses, and they have a salary, a regular salary, and they're the ones who are bringing the money home. And that means that they're improving the house, they're building their own houses. They build their own houses. They buy the bricks, they buy the cement, they buy the furniture. And they're the ones who now have the possibility of doing things that many men are not able to do. Why? Because the men, some of them do get an education, but many are agricultural workers, construction workers. So the jobs they have are temporal. When a man works in agriculture, it could be 2-3 months in a harvest, 4 or 5 months in another harvest, which is not the same as having a permanent job as some of these women do. The other women who have not studied, many of them put very small shops. This is throughout Latin America. I will generalize all of Latin America. You will see women who have very, very small shops in their houses. It's like a little window and a little piece of furniture, and they will sell grocery store items. Or they will cook food to sell. This, if you travel throughout any third world country or developing country, you will see women doing things like this to make a living. So it's money that's made on an everyday basis. It's very hard in this sense to save money, which women somehow manage to do, but very hard to save money when you have this economy, this local economy, a very high inflation. However, women understand that they have to save for emergencies or for any needs they have for the household.
Thank you. What I understand is that all the economical life is related to their communities, always, always. And probably is very limited. It's a barrier for them too, because they do not have all the possibilities in society.
Yes.
They always seems to be that they always want to be in their community, getting married with their men, and they do not marry with any other guy from any other community or.
Not as much.
So,
that's a very good. Yeah, that's a very good point and question. People are. I don't want to generalize, but in general, indigenous peoples are very rooted, very grounded, have a sense of belonging. That's very important. And their lives and their family and extended family is the most important thing in life. And the most important thing in life is to be near one's family. In spite of that, there is a very high level of migration, especially from rural to urban, because there are no jobs, because the agriculture is really not sufficient to make a living. So a lot of young people, both men and women, are now migrating to cities, to big cities like Buenos Aires, very big cities, or other cities. And so that brings a lot of changes, because now in the city, it's not the same form of life that they had. And in the city, you have to make much more money. You have to pay rent, electricity, gas, all these things that they don't pay in their communities. They don't pay rent in their communities at all. It's their own houses. Something interesting that I've noted, and I wanted to mention it to you, is that the people who migrate to the city when they're young, they start saving money to build a house in their village, a brick house in their village, because they see themselves as, when they grow old, they want to return to the village and live there. Because they know that in the city, life is very hard, and they want to go back to that place that makes sense to them, where their family is. So they work very hard, the women, a young couple, say someone in their 30s, in the city. Many men are construction workers in the city, and the women are cleaning ladies, cleaning people, work in buildings or in people's houses cleaning. And some of them work 6 days a week or even 7 days a week to save that money to send back home or to build a house at home.
Yeah, this is very interesting. And also I would like to ask, you were mentioned before about gender-based violence. So if they just stay at their community, how can they overcome how? Because gender-based violence, you need to go out from your aggressor, at least. And also when they break the rules, what happens? Are they out of the community? How?
Yes, that's the wonderful question. Well, gender violence is transversal. It's all over the world, unfortunately, and very prevalent in Latin America, very prevalent in Argentina, unfortunately, as well as femicide, extremely prevalent. There's one case of femicide every 40 hours, 50 hours in the country. So we're talking about a very huge, important number of violence against women. In spite of that, I have to mention that, perhaps you've seen, Argentina has a very important feminist movement, extremely important feminist movement that emerged in the last, before the pandemic, 6 or 7 years ago. Huge feminist movement. This feminist movement is a movement against femicide, against gender violence, and for gender equality. And it's been transversal, it's been extremely intersectional. You find the impact of the feminist movement in all social classes and throughout the country, because it's been very visible. It's been in the media, extremely important in the media, throughout Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, radio and television. You see demonstrations, you see women struggling for women's rights. It's been so large that even in the rural communities, I've seen a mural in a building, which is a school actually, in one of the rural villages, about what we call Ni Una Menos, which is a movement of, Ni Una Menos means not one more less, it's about against femicide. And so women began listening in the radio and television that you have rights, that if your husband or boyfriend beats you up or is violent, you can denounce it to the police. This is new. I mean, their mothers or grandmothers never did anything. They were victims of violence, and just they lived with that. Now, the younger generation has changed, and this is really significant because it's very difficult to go to the police being an indigenous woman, which means a minority who is discriminated, and said, my husband is violent or beat me up, or the women actually in the hospital because of the bruises of the violence. And they've done this. And I think this is slowly happening. So this is a very, very interesting change. And it shows the impact of public policy, because it's a public policy that the previous government had of really having a telephone number for emergency, an area of government called the Ministry of Women to help women with equal opportunities and against gender violence. And so this trickled down, that people hear it, people listen to it, people look in the television, they see programs about it. And so this has really had an impact. I don't say a lot has to be done still, but the fact that someone denounces it, you say, wow, something is happening. However, it doesn't happen all the time. Some women will live with that violence without doing anything. But even if there's a few cases, I think that means there's a change.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Silvia. Thank you to the CINEF, Centro Interdisciplinar de Estudios Feministas de las Mujeres y de Género, and thank you so much to the laboratory of the Faculty of Social Sciences. And thank you. So thank you. This, we hope, is the first but not the last time we will have you here. It's really a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. And yes, I hope to see you in another opportunity.